successful alpine skier, male or female, ever, and a worldwide inspiration.
We need a lot of women doing sports really, really well.
The story of Michaela Schifrin's game-changing reign at the top of the slopes when we go person to person.
CBS News, 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS.
You can't get answers in a tweet on Face the Nation. We try to separate the noise from the news. You need to be able to have an actual conversation.
Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Herridge in Washington, and thanks for streaming. Here's a look at the top stories we're following. Israel's Iron Dome intercepting rockets, threatening Tel Aviv as fighting inside Gaza intensifies. CBS News goes inside what Israel claims is a Hamas tunnel running beneath the region's largest hospital. Plus, growing backlash for Elon Musk. The list of companies pulling advertising from X is growing after a controversial post from the billionaire. And this weekend, what happens in Vegas will be broadcast to millions of Formula One fans around the world. But preparations are already hitting blocks. But first, Israeli troops are entering a new phase of its operation at the Gaza Strip's largest hospital. The IDF showing CBS News a tunnel they say is proof Hamas used the Al-Shifa hospital as a command center, a claim Hamas denies. The Israeli military also displaying weapons they say were found in a vehicle on hospital grounds. Our Imtiaz Tayeb traveled to the Al-Shifa complex with a group of Israeli soldiers for a first-hand look at the operation. Imtiaz.
Well, Israeli forces showed us what it said are, quote, clear indications of a Hamas command center below Al-Shifa hospital, an allegation that's been central to Israel's justification for its devastating military campaign across Gaza.
It was under the cover of darkness our journey into Gaza began. We traveled in one of Israel's most sophisticated armored personnel carriers, called the Namo, or Tiger.
This armored personnel vehicle is the only way for us to get to the Al-Shifa hospital, which is now surrounded by Israeli forces. It's been the epicenter of its battle here in Gaza City.
On the view screen, the ghostly wreckage of Gaza City's devastated neighborhoods pass by. As we walk towards the badly damaged main Al-Shifa hospital complex, we're met by Israel's Shaldag Air Force unit, which raided the hospital on Wednesday and have been searching it since.
When Israeli forces arrived here, they discovered this. This, they say, is a Hamas tunnel that connects to a tunnel network underneath the Al-Shifa hospital, something they say Hamas has been using to launch attacks.
We were then shown a collection of rifles and ammunition the Israeli military says is more evidence of a Hamas command center.
The criticism is that the evidence provided so far is underwhelming, that it doesn't show unequivocally that this was a Hamas command center.
Well, it will take us time.
Just a second, this was not just one Hamas headquarters. This was at least 3 headquarters working simultaneously in the city and outside the city. And
this is a level of detail which we're not seeing, though. If you knew there's 3 separate command centers, but we can't see any of that.
This is it's not something you can see right now. We took most of the things out.
But as Israel pushes ahead with its goal to destroy Hamas following its deadly October 7th attack and kidnappings, Hamas's leaders continue to deny it uses hospitals as cover for its tunnel networks or that Al-Shifa was a base for its command center.
Now, as part of the conditions of our trip with Israeli forces into Gaza, we could only go where they wanted to take us and see what they wanted to show us. But Israel's army had no control over our final report. Catherine.
Imtiaz Tayeb in Tel Aviv, thank you for your reporting. At least one person died Friday after being shot at a New Hampshire State Hospital in Concord. Authorities say the suspect also died in a shootout with officers. They say the situation is now contained. The facility is an acute psychiatric hospital with its own uniformed security. The scene is still considered active as police investigate a suspicious vehicle. The chairman of the House Ethics Committee filing a motion Friday to expel the New York Congressman George Santos. Republican Michael Guest says he will force a vote on removing Santos after the Thanksgiving holiday. The move follows a scathing report that accuses the freshman Republican of using campaign funds for Botox, designer clothes, and the website OnlyFans. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott McFarland reports.
The measure to expel New York Congressman George Santos, introduced this morning by fellow Republican Michael Guest of Mississippi, says Santos must be held accountable in order to safeguard the public's faith in this institution. The development came one day after the House Ethics Committee, chaired by Guest, accused Santos of fraud, lies, and theft in a scathing 56-page report. The committee did not recommend formal punishment for Santos, but New York Republicans who've been calling for his expulsion for weeks say it could happen when Congress returns after Thanksgiving.
We know George Santos. He's our natural disaster. We know it best. And we've been trying to get that point across for months now.
A CBS News tally finds over the past 24 hours, more than a dozen House members who previously opposed removing Santos say they'd now vote to do so. He already faces trial in New York in September on nearly 24 federal criminal charges, including allegations he stole his donors' credit card numbers and made personal charges. The House Ethics Committee report adds new details, alleging Santos spent donor money on Botox, luxury shopping sprees, trips to the Hamptons and Atlantic City, and a subscription to the adult OnlyFans website. Maryland Democrat Glenn Ivey helped conduct the Ethics Committee probe into Santos.
What struck you most from what you found?
Just how repeated it was. I mean, it was just so brazen and obvious at some level.
Scott McFarland joins us now from Capitol Hill. So, Scott, let's go a little deeper on how Santos allegedly spent those campaign funds.
Yeah, this parallels what the Department of Justice says this Ethics Committee report does, Catherine, that he used the campaign funds for his own personal needs. You know, the Ethics Committee gets pretty granular and pretty colorful, not just the Botox, but that he used it for trips, even to help pay his own rent. The Ethics Committee makes that a pretty profound part of their findings. But, Catherine, that's critical in the Department of Justice case, too, for which he faces trial in September, for which he's pleaded not guilty, but for which he faces prison time. Much a bigger punishment than a congressional career.
That's right. Let's talk about the political impact of losing another Republican seat in the House.
At this moment in time, it's just enormous, and it's hard to overstate it. Republicans can lose 4 votes on anything they want to pass with Republican votes only. And there are some huge things coming down the pike, not just a measure to keep the government open in January, but there are issues involving the military, the FISA court. Oh, by the way, they also want to get some of their policies enacted. And if he were to step down or be expelled, they're down to a 3-vote margin. What's more, Catherine, there'd be a special election to fill that seat before the November 2024 election. And there's a sense that very competitive district could go blue in the wake of George Santos.
Scott McFarland on Capitol Hill. Thank you.
Thank you.
The judge overseeing the New York civil fraud case against former President Donald Trump has rejected a motion to declare a mistrial. Trump's lawyers argued Judge Arthur Engoron and his federal law clerk have shown bias against the former president. The judge denied those claims and said the motion for a mistrial was without merit. Trump's legal team says they will continue to fight for what they see as a fair trial. Former First Lady Rosalynn Carter has entered hospice care at her home in Georgia. The Carter Center shared in May what Mrs. Carter described as dementia. The 96-year-old is the second longest lived First Lady in American history. Her husband, former President Jimmy Carter, has also been in hospice care at their home since February. He turned 99 last month. The Carter Center says they are spending time with each other and their family and asks for privacy from the public. Some 55 million Americans are expected to travel more than 50 miles from home this coming week to celebrate Thanksgiving. And the TSA anticipates one of the busiest holidays in recent memory, screening 30 million travelers. Chris Van Cleve has new reporting from Miami.
What used to be a 4-day Thanksgiving holiday is now nearly a 2-week travel extravaganza. Thursday, more than 2.5 million passed through airport checkpoints, and the nation's airlines expect that number to climb closer to 2.7 million starting today.
I don't like flying either, but sometimes you have to fly.
Trying to beat the crowds, definitely.
The Trevesos found a good deal on flights leaving Fort Lauderdale today to see family in Puerto Rico.
We don't want to travel next week when the airports are pretty crazy.
Airlines expect nearly 30 million passengers to travel through the Monday after Thanksgiving, a new record, flying about 9% more people daily compared to last year. Next Sunday is expected to be the busiest day at airports ever, with the potential of 3.2 million passing through. Already this month, the TSA has screened more passengers than before the pandemic.
We're expecting to see the most passengers departing from Atlanta, Denver, Dallas, and Los Angeles. Lines will be longest early morning and early afternoon for people heading out.
More people are expected to drive, over 49 million according to AAA, making this the third busiest Thanksgiving ever. Drivers will see significantly lower prices at the pump, 39 cents cheaper than last year.
Every penny drop in the national average saves Americans roughly $37 million every single day.
Chris Van Cleve joins us now from Miami. Chris, what's driving this year's historic travel volume?
Well, it's likely the pandemic being further in the rear view, people feeling comfortable about flying. Domestic airfares have ticked down and some pent-up demand for people to be together on the holidays. You know, we've seen a very steady pace of travel all year long, so not surprising that it would stay busy, if not be busier on a holiday where, you know, families come together in such a tight window of time.
And based on your reporting, what can people do to make traveling easier this year?
Well, there's going to be a lot of people at airports, particularly between now and the Monday or Tuesday after Thanksgiving, and especially if you're flying Tuesday, Wednesday next week or Sunday after Thanksgiving. Airports are going to be very busy. So if you're flying, you want to leave yourself some extra time. While we were at the Miami airport today, we watched the checkpoint times grow as they got sort of into the afternoon peak time. So, you know, if you're used to spending 5 minutes in line, be prepared to spend more time in line. So probably leave yourself enough time is the biggest piece of advice you can give if you're driving. Obviously, if you can pick a time when other people may not be on the roads, like Thanksgiving morning, that's going to save you a lot of headaches and you're going to run into a lot fewer people.
Chris Van Cleve, thank you for the new reporting in Miami.
Sure thing.
And travelers this week are on a collision course with two major storms. For more, let's bring in meteorologist Chris Warren with our partners at the Weather Channel.
Heading into a big travel period here, a lot to watch, and it's the time of year we're watching for snow and severe weather. Not all at once and all in the same places, but throughout the U.S., like here in the western United States this weekend through Sunday, at times there's going to be snow. Check the passes you're going over. Make sure you know what the snow levels are going to be when you're heading over, so it can make a big difference. And then the severe side of things on Sunday. Oklahoma, parts of Texas, including the Dallas-Fort Worth area, could see some stronger thunderstorms. And then on Monday, the threat area shifts a little bit farther to the east, still in the south. East Texas, a lot of Louisiana, southern Arkansas, and Mississippi in the danger zone for some of the stronger storms. So on Monday, that system that's going to bring some of the severe weather eventually will bring more rain and even some snow to parts of the central and eastern time zones. And for more in-depth coverage, watch the Weather Channel on cable and now live on your favorite TV streaming device.
Chris Warren at the Weather Channel. Thank you. Singer Cassie's lawsuit against Sean Combs calls the entertainer vicious, cruel, and controlling. Meanwhile, his lawyer says the suit is offensive and outrageous. We'll have new reporting on the legal battle. And Formula One racing is hitting the streets of Las Vegas. We'll tell you more about this weekend's $500 million Grand Prix after the break. You're streaming CBS News.
Well, let me start with this.
This really happened.
Have you told the government?
Did any of that make sense?
What's your response?
You want me to just
What's
keep
wrong
going?
with that argument?
What have you learned?
Do you know why?
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 It's time for 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Since you started La Soup in 2014, do you have any sense as to how much food you've rescued from the landfill?
We've rescued 4.5 million pounds.
I can't even fathom how much food that is.
And that's one little person in one little city in America. We're going to call this chicken piccata. We did 450 of these meals today.
This is the exact dish that you and I are going to have.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Is it good?
Mm-hmm.
Having a plan of how to keep people fed should be in every single city.
If we eliminated food waste, could we eliminate
hunger? Yes.
Eating Trash, now streaming on the free CBS News app. An original documentary from CBS Reports.
You had a substitute teacher that was pretty popular. What was his reputation?
Everyone loved him.
You had to miss a test. What did he offer to have you make up the test?
He said that I can come by after school was all over and just take the exam. The blinds were down. He closed the door. The next thing I knew, he was right next to me. That's when I realized what was going to happen. Even if I wanted to scream at the top of my lungs, no one would hear me because no one was there. He told me that if I ever said anything to anyone, he would kill me, and he would kill my family. So I did it.
Pledge of Silence, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
He was there when the war in Ukraine started.
Extreme history. It's a big moment.
The extraordinary story behind Sean Penn's new Paramount Plus documentary, Superpower, when we go person to person.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7. That is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable. The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Why did you miss the moment?
I'm not sure why they missed the moment.
It doesn't look like Congress is doing anything. That's the role of Face the Nation, to focus on the issues at hand. That means a civil conversation with perspective.
President Biden signing a short-term spending bill late Thursday to avoid a government shutdown. The president signed the legislation in California, where he took part in an economic summit. The bill funds some government agencies through mid-January until early February. It does not include major spending cuts or foreign aid to Israel or Ukraine. Meantime, Elon Musk is facing backlash, accused of spreading anti-Semitic messages on his platform X, what many know as Twitter. CBS News' Nancy Cordes is at the White House, where the administration is condemning the billionaire's, quote, abhorrent comments.
The latest firestorm sparked by Elon Musk on his social media site X is now threatening to spread to his other companies, including SpaceX and electric car maker Tesla, as investors openly muse about selling stock. The controversy started Wednesday afternoon when Musk, the world's richest man, liked a post on X that claimed Jewish communities have a, quote, dialectical hatred against whites. You have said the actual truth, Musk responded.
My first reaction was, grow up.
Rabbi Abraham Cooper just met with Musk about anti-Semitism 2 months ago.
I thought was a kind of flippant statement, which I understood immediately will be embraced by anti-Semites to say, hey, Elon Musk is in our camp. He understands us. He gets our pain.
Tech giant IBM pulled its advertising from X, citing the, quote, entirely unacceptable situation. Lionsgate Entertainment followed suit. But this was not Musk's first foray into white nationalist sentiment. In 2018, he suggested that Jews own the press. He has amplified racist memes on his site and reinstated extremist accounts.
I'll say what I want to say, and if the consequence of that is losing money, so be it.
Musk has made no attempt to walk back his latest comments. Linda Yaccarino, the CEO of X, did post that, quote, discrimination by everyone should stop across the board. This morning, even the White House waded in, saying, quote, "We condemn this abhorrent promotion of anti-Semitic and racist hate in the strongest terms, which runs against our core values as Americans." This all comes, of course, amid a surge in anti-Semitic sentiment across the U.S. In fact, just within the past couple of days, the Department of Education has launched discrimination investigations at 7 schools, including Cornell and Columbia, after getting reports of anti-Semitic and Islamophobic incidents. Catherine?
Nancy Cordes, thank you. OpenAI co-founder Sam Altman has been ousted as the company's CEO. The company behind ChatGPT says its board no longer has confidence in Altman's leadership. The move came after a review found he was, quote, "not consistently candid in his communications." Altman helped start OpenAI as a nonprofit research lab in 2015. A lawsuit filed against Sean Diddy Combs accuses the music performer and executive of rape, physical abuse, and sex trafficking. The singer Casey says the incidents occurred throughout her 10-year relationship with Combs. Her suit was filed under a law that allows alleged sexual offense victims to file past the statute of limitations for criminal charges. Casey says she wants to speak out before that law expires. Next week. Mr. Combs denies all allegations. For more, let's bring in entertainment attorney Dante Mills. So, Dante, thanks for being with us. Cassie has signed with that label when she was just 19, and Sean Combs was 37. What's alleged to have happened after that?
Thank you for having me, Catherine. So in this lawsuit, I just wanted to be clear. This is a civil lawsuit. This is not a criminal lawsuit. There's no chance here as we stand for Sean Combs to go to jail. It's a civil lawsuit about money. And the claim is that during their relationship, he was physically abusive, that he required or demanded that she perform certain sexual acts with other people while he was there, and that he, in fact, raped her shortly before she left him. She said she did not want to have sexual relations with him, and he forced himself on her. That's the basis of this lawsuit and why it's moving forward. Now, you are right to talk about the fact that this lawsuit was brought in New York because these things happened years ago. So the statute of limitations is gone most places. But in New York, they had this law where they opened it up for a year and said, if you're a survivor of sexual assault, you have a year to bring your claim, and that expires next week, November 23rd of this year.
Okay, so you've handled several high-profile cases. What would your defense strategy look like?
Absolutely. I have a lot of high-profile clients, and the first thing that comes to mind when we get these lawsuits in, not just of this nature, but any of them, is that the people are about money. This is a civil lawsuit, and at the end of the day, Cassie would receive money if she wins. So the first defense is always going to be that these claims are made up, that they're exaggerated, that none of this happened. She simply wants money. She knows that Sean Combs has it, and she wants a piece of it. That's the first and most natural defense.
So Cassie's legal team, how are they going to handle questions about why she stayed in the relationship as long as she did and then waited so long to report the allegations?
Absolutely. That's a tough issue because when you're in a relationship for that long, sometimes things build up where you go in and you're being wined and dined and everything is good, and gradually things get worse. So if I'm on her team as her attorney, I'm making it clear that that's what happened here, that the relationship started out good, but gradually it got worse and worse to the point that she was caught in this vicious cycle. She was caught under his thumb and almost didn't even realize it until she got out of there and some years went by, and then she began to process and heal and say, I went through things that I did not agree with and that should not have happened to me. That's what her side would be saying. If I'm on Sean Combs' side, I'm saying that none of this came up while they were in a relationship, and that she brought this up after she walked away and realized that she could not continue her lifestyle and needed money to do so. And that's why this claim came here.
That's a great observation. This complaint mentions multiple third-party witnesses, also videos and photos. This evidence, which party could benefit most?
Yes, I think that evidence, physical evidence like videos and witnesses are very important for the person bringing the claim. Remember, Cassie has to prove this claim. All that Sean Combs has to do is make it so it's unbelievable, but Cassie has to prove it. And when you're talking about, especially sexual assault and things like that, normally what a jury looks for is, did something come out contemporaneous to when the assault happened? Was there a friend that she told about the next day that she called crying, saying, Sean Combs hit me in the face or made me do something I didn't want to do? Does she have things that date back to when these things happened? That's the easiest way to convince people that she's not making this up after the fact. It's by having that evidence that was made around the time that these things happened. That's her best hope for convincing people. And I think that they put that in the complaint because they want people to realize or know that they have these things in the bag and they're prepared to come forward with them.
Like, as they like to say, that she's brought receipts to the table, basically. So to wrap up the analysis, do you believe this will go to trial, or are you predicting a financial settlement?
With the clients that I have, before it gets to the point of the lawsuit, I say, listen, is this something that you want to resolve? Let's do it now before it becomes public. It was made clear that Sean Combs' camp and Cassie's camp had conversations before this lawsuit came out. I'm thinking that if he was going to settle it, he would have done it before she filed the lawsuit. He was aware that a lawsuit was coming. So you have to wonder whether he said, I'm going to fight this to the end. And that's why she brought the lawsuit, because he wasn't willing to pay what she wanted him to pay. And that means this may go all the way. It will be very interesting to see. We'll see what the proof is, but we may go the distance on this one.
Dante Mills, thank you very much for your legal analysis and expertise.
Thank you.
Kool and the Gang drummer George Funky Brown has died after a battle with lung cancer. Brown was a co-founder of the group. He helped write some of its biggest hits, including Celebration. Who doesn't love that song, by the way? Jungle Boogie and Ladies' Night. He described their music as, quote, the sound of happiness. Brown released a memoir and produced his final Kool album in July of this year. George Funky Brown was 74. The most powerful rocket ever designed will attempt to launch into orbit from Texas this weekend. We'll explain what sets SpaceX's Starship rocket apart from other recent launches. But first.
As a mentor, Mr. Snow, your role is to turn these children into spectacles, not survivors.
The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is now playing in U.S. theaters. This prequel explains the origin of the ritual scene in the popular franchise. It's one of several movies coming out this weekend. Others include Thanksgiving Trolls Band Together and Next Goal Wins. We'll be right back.
Our story's just begun. Why did you want to share your story?
Water up this high? Where are these coming from?
That's the million-dollar question.
I'm a very curious person. I wake up every morning asking, what's happening in the world? Why is this happening? And how do we answer that question on the CBS Evening News?
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Haitians are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We aim every night to be factual and fair. That's our goal.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Controversial Congressman George Santos.
Why won't you answer our questions?
How did he manage to get elected?
Thank you very much, and God bless you, and God bless the USA.
George Santos' campaign was a campaign of deceit, lies, fabrication.
And who is he, really?
I knew him as Anthony DeVolder from Queens.
Really, who he is, he's a fraud.
I compare him to the Tinder swindler.
From people who know him, the truth, the facts, the lies.
He would say that he was worth $100 million.
It's an incredibly cynical episode in American politics, beyond satire.
Had you ever seen anything like this?
No, and I hope I never see it again.
Campaign of Deceit, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Since childhood, she never stopped reaching for the skies. Now she's spent more time in space than any other American.
I like being a part of something bigger than me.
Peggy Whitson's extraordinary career as a history-making astronaut when we go person to person.
Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell.
I think I asked direct questions. I don't know that they're tough questions per se. Why aren't you holding yourself to that standard? It doesn't look like Congress is doing anything. What has to happen? That's the role of Face the Nation, to focus on the issues at hand. And that means a civil conversation with perspective.
We are about to see American weapons in the hands of Mexican cartels.
A gun pipeline to Mexico.
We are arming the cartels.
100%, no doubt about it.
Happening right under our noses.
Who's doing something about this? Nobody.
A CBS Reports exclusive.
Most Americans have no idea that we are effectively arming the enemy next door.
This is the story the American people need to know.
Arming cartels. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to CBS News. I'm Catherine Herridge in Washington, and here's a look at our top stories. Israel says it will begin allowing minimal daily shipments of fuel into Gaza. It will be delivered to the United Agency for humanitarian purposes. A fuel shortage has crippled hospitals in the Palestinian territory, but Israel was hesitant to allow fuel over concerns Hamas would use it for military actions. The chair of the House Ethics Committee has formally introduced a resolution to expel George Santos from Congress. The move comes a day after a scathing report found evidence the freshman lawmaker violated federal laws. An expulsion would require support from 2/3 of the House. And President Biden wrapped up his trip out west with a meeting with Mexico's president. They discussed migration and the fentanyl crisis. Biden has spent the last several days meeting with leaders in San Francisco as part of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. Earlier this week, we sat down with Republican Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska, who sits on the powerful Senate Armed Services Committee. Sullivan tells CBS News the military holds on officer promotions by another Republican Senator, Tommy Tuberville, is weakening the U.S. military against China. Here's some of that conversation. This week, President Biden met with China's president. What's the impact of these military holds on our readiness in the South China Sea, specifically with our submarine fleet?
A lot of these holds are on, 2- and 3-star Navy admirals, a lot of whom are Navy admirals with submarine experience. And that is really, in my view, dangerous. Why is that? Xi Jinping, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, is scared of a lot of elements of American power. One element of American power he's really scared of is our submarine fleet. We have about a generation in terms of our advancement over their sub capabilities. But you can't just put a submarine commander in a sub or with a sub fleet overnight. It takes years, decades to train military officers on submarine operations. Right now, we're holding numerous admirals who have incredible, hundreds of years combined experience on sub operations. This is something that we want to make sure we are deploying, not keeping on the bench, keep Xi Jinping nervous about American submarines. And that's another reason why we got to get these generals and admirals confirmed.
Well, what I'm hearing you say is that these holds by Senator Tuberville are weakening U.S. deterrence.
I have no doubt that they're undermining readiness. And it's not just readiness, it's morale. There's growing bitterness in our military forces because, again, they know they're being punished over something they have nothing to do with. And when Senator Tuberville says, oh, don't worry, everything's fine, there's no readiness problem. Look, I'm the ranking member on the subcommittee on the Armed Services Committee in charge of readiness. I focus on readiness daily. That's just an incorrect statement. And in my view, it's the Biden administration's non-seriousness when it comes to our military. The president has put forward 3 budgets in a row that significantly cut the military. And his latest budget shrinks the Army, shrinks the Navy, shrinks the Marine Corps. That is exactly the wrong message to be sending to Xi Jinping and Putin.
President Biden said he had a, quote, clear-headed discussion with the Chinese president about Taiwan. How close are we to a military conflict with China over the island?
And what I worry about right now is on the capability side. There is increasing overmatch, what we call in the military overmatch, of Chinese forces in the Taiwan Strait and South China Sea region relative to our forces. And again, the Biden budget, which shrinks the Navy significantly, is not helping with that. We need to be much more ready, and that's a huge focus of mine as a U.S. Senator.
Which GOP presidential candidate is best equipped to take on China?
Well, you know, look, I have not endorsed any GOP candidate yet. I'm certainly planning on endorsing who the eventual nominee on the Republican Party side is. You know, I think President Trump's policy with regard to China was actually quite strong. It was an awakening for the Chinese. He really essentially said, hey, no more of this promise fatigue, no more of these broken promises. And, you know, during the Trump administration, working with the Republican Senate, we significantly increased our military budgets.
Has the strength of U.S. deterrence diminished under the Biden White House?
Yes.
How significantly?
I think it's been significant both as it relates to our military power. Again, next year, the president's budget is going to take our military spending to below 3% of GDP. We've been below 3% of GDP on military spending probably 4 or 5 times in the last 70 years. And that was primarily during the end of the Clinton administration when the so-called peace dividend. So the military budget during this very dangerous time is going directly in the wrong direction. So to me, that is a huge component of hard power. There's no doubt in my mind. I will give the president and his team one area of, I think, where they've done a good job, and that is enhancing our alliances. That is another area of American strategic advantage over the Chinese.
With less than 2 months until the Iowa primary caucus, Republican candidates are hoping to pull in support from evangelical voters. 3 candidates, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, and Vivek Ramaswamy, were in Des Moines Friday for a Thanksgiving family forum. It was hosted by the influential evangelical Bob Vander Plaats. The race's frontrunner, Donald Trump, was also invited, but like the debates, he chose not to attend. Let's bring in CBS News political reporter Aaron Navarro, who's on the ground in Des Moines. Aaron, what issue dominated the forum?
Catherine, thanks for having me. This is going to sound broad, but family. The biggest news out of tonight came when Vivek Ramaswamy and Ron DeSantis talked about for the first time on the campaign trail their wives' experiences with miscarriages. This delved into a conversation about abortion, and as all 3 candidates voiced how pro-life they are. But I think that specifically, that issue of family, of being a moral leader in the country, was really the main theme that occupied this roughly 2-hour respectful and polite roundtable with these candidates.
Any of these GOP candidates really challenged former President Trump among these evangelical voters?
Now, what I've been hearing from faith leaders in the state with 2 months left until the Iowa caucus is that, yes, that this block of voters that has helped push underdog candidates over the hump in the past is up for grabs, but that candidates really have to put in the work. We've seen Ron DeSantis really make overtures to this base, cite Bible verses, and tout the support of faith leaders as he tries to cut into this base that has really supported Donald Trump in big numbers since 2016. It remains to be seen, and hopefully we'll find out in 2 months.
And Ron DeSantis is campaigning in all 99 counties, known as the Full Grassley, a nod to the state's longtime senator. Is it having an impact?
This is the question I've been asking strategists, is does retail politics work against someone like Donald Trump? And what I've been hearing and seeing is that so far there's not a clear yes. In the polls, DeSantis still trails former President Trump by large numbers, but his campaign argues that having that foundation of grassroots support, being able to reconnect with voters in these closing weeks, is what will put him over the hump and may not be what always registers in these polls of 400 or 500 people.
Aaron Navarro, thank you for your reporting on the ground in Iowa. The auto workers at Ford and Stellantis are on the verge of approving their new hard-fought contracts. The final ratification votes will be counted Saturday. Workers at General Motors ratified their new deals earlier this week. The contracts with the big three automakers come after nearly 6 weeks of strikes. They include pay raises and cost of living adjustments. Formula One racing is taking over the Las Vegas Strip this weekend. 10 teams making up 20 drivers will compete in the 50-lap race. The nearly 4-mile track includes the Vegas Strip and passes by Caesar's Palace, the Bellagio, and the newly opened Sphere. CBS News producer Elizabeth Campbell joins us now from Las Vegas to talk more about the weekend race. So, Elizabeth, how is the city of Las Vegas getting prepared?
Well, good to be with you, Catherine. And it has been a long road to get Las Vegas ready for this race. They had to repave every part of the nearly 4-mile track that the cars will be racing on. And then you can probably see the fencing behind me. They then had to put fencing up around that entire track. Formula One really wants to protect their product and make sure no one just walks in to see what they're doing. And then on top of that, they had to build bridges over the different track and the fences to make sure that cars and pedestrians could still get by. So it's been a lot of construction and a lot of change to the city.
Okay, so what about the problems they've been having with the track even before the race?
So after all of that preparation we just talked about, they hit a literal bump in the road. Just 8 minutes into the first practice session last night, there was a loose drain valve cover that when the Ferrari car went over it, the force of these F1 cars are so powerful, it literally pulled the drain cover off the road and dented a hole through the Ferrari car. So it was hard to watch. Luckily, all the drivers were safe. They made all the repairs to the car. That Ferrari car was actually able to race again in that second practice. So things are kind of getting back up to full speed now in the Grand Prix.
So where do things stand on ticket sales?
You know, this was a big gamble for Formula One. They put a lot of their own money into this race, and it hasn't been exactly the payout they were expecting. Tickets and prices have been dwindling more and more. They've been going down more and more. But we've still run into lots of fans we've talked to who bought their tickets months in advance, and they're still excited for the race. So not exactly as much of a payout as Formula One was hoping for, but still lots of crowded fans who are excited to see some racing.
And so what's the impact been on the local businesses?
I gotta tell you, we've been talking to businesses the entire time we've been here, and it has been devastating. We talked to one owner today. He's had to lay off half of his staff because the bridges that we talked about earlier, they made things go around his shop. So there's just no foot traffic. There's no vehicle traffic anywhere to his spot. So Formula One says that they are bringing in investments into the city, but a lot of the businesses we've talked to say they don't see that.
Elizabeth Campbell, thank you for your reporting on this big Formula One weekend.
Thank you.
Still ahead, a big awards show is coming to CBS. We'll tell you which one. That's ahead. But before we go to break, here's a look at what's trending on social media. South Korea is looking to ban eating dog meat. An official says the proposal will be introduced this year and is expected to pass with bipartisan support. Comes after a recent uproar from animal rights activists. Plus, rapper Snoop Dogg says he's quitting pot. That's hard to believe. The performer has been famous for his public use and promotion of smoking cannabis for decades. Fans are now questioning if his announcement is real and what led to it. You're streaming CBS News.
On Face the Nation, the way to learn is to listen.
We may have a recession.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is so key to understanding their perspective.
Everybody wakes up in the morning and they are pelted with alerts that frighten them, news that agitates them. With this show, we have the time to explain what's going on. These migrants, they've been released. Explain the status that allows them to be released, to slow things down a little bit. What are the big sets of questions for China and its ambitions? Hackers are stepping up their attacks to extort victims. Let's start with easy. Who's attacking? Here's a deeper understanding of what's happening.
Prime Time with John Dickerson. Stream on the free CBS News app.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning.
Well, let me start with this. What is at stake here?
What is the answer then?
Do you know why?
You want me to just keep going?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Were there death threats?
How is this possible?
What's wrong with that argument?
Are you saying they lied?
Have you told the government that? Why won't you say the word crisis?
You're not answering my question.
This really
Is that scary?
Does that make sense?
What do you mean?
What does that mean in
Did any of that make
What
sense?
have you learned?
What's your response?
What happened?
Why?
It's time for the CBS News Original 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Dragon capsule here in space.
Sightseers in space, the thrill of a lifetime.
Seeing the Earth from space, it was so exhilarating.
But the risks that come with the territory.
There have been 4 fatal accidents. That's a 1% fatal accident rate.
Might make you look before you launch.
If you had 1 out of 100 airplanes falling out of the sky, we'd have a public crisis.
Space tourism, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Morning news matters because it sets the tone for your day, and it's a way of getting you started. We take you places, teach you new things, and we make you feel like, it's not all bad. We're going to uplift you. People say to me, you always seem to be having a good time. I mean, you know what? You're right.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
When weather turns extreme.
A massive storm with winds of 150 miles per hour.
The storm strengthened again overnight.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real, you'll have time to get prepared. Feel the forecast. Weather when it matters most on CBS News.
I wake up every morning asking, what's happening in the world? Why is this happening? And how do we answer that question? After the tragic loss of beloved newsman Tim Russert, his son went on a worldwide journey to find himself.
I struggled with his grief for a long time.
How Luke Russert is honoring the legacy of his father when we go person to person.
It was announced Friday that the 2024 Golden Globes will air right here on CBS and Paramount+. Next year's Golden Globes will feature 2 new categories, Cinematic and Box Office Achievement, and Best Stand-Up Comedian on Television. It will also follow an NFL on CBS doubleheader. The show will air live on Sunday, January 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern. German researchers have 3D printed a robotic hand complete with bones, ligaments, and tendons for the very first time. It's a breakthrough in the world of 3D printing, as various parts of the hand were made simultaneously and not assembled later. It used a new laser scanning technique, allowing printers to create what are called special plastics with elastic qualities for softness and strength. The most powerful rocket ever built is set to attempt its second test flight on Saturday. SpaceX's Starship received clearance for a second launch from the FAA Wednesday. Liftoff was initially scheduled for Friday, but it was delayed to replace a piece of control hardware. CBS News space analyst Bill Harwood joins us now. So, Bill, why is this flight so important to SpaceX and NASA in particular?
Well, to take NASA first, they're counting on the upper stage of this rocket, the part of it they call the Starship, to carry astronauts back down to the surface of the moon in NASA's Artemis program. So this rocket's got to get flying reliably before NASA can send their Artemis astronauts back to the moon. SpaceX is counting on this rocket really as the company's future. It is such a huge machine, they can launch an enormous number of Starlink satellites and others, as well as heavy payloads to the moon and beyond, even to Mars. So both of them, SpaceX and NASA, have a lot riding on successful flights, plural. It's not just the test flight. They have to have multiple flights work as planned.
So it's all about this sense of reliability and consistency. So let's take that a step further. What makes the Starship rocket really stand out from others?
You know, we could talk about that all night. It is
Let's
gargantuan.
do it.
Okay. You know,
so interesting.
Yeah.
So
well,
interesting.
You know, its first stage generates 16 million pounds of thrust. And to put that in perspective, you know, the Saturn V moon rocket generated 7.5 million, and NASA's Space Launch System moon rocket, its big new rocket, is about half the power of this super heavy Starship combination. So it is a truly monstrous rocket. Nobody's ever built anything this size before, and they're designing it to be reused. Both stages, fully reusable, multiple launches from both Boca Chica, Texas, where this launch is going to happen, and then again at the Kennedy Space Center, where they've also built a Starship pad. So I tell you what, you know, it's really going to be something to see when they get this thing to work.
So I know you did reporting on this earlier. There was this mid-air collision. We've got some video we're going to play here. So what changes have been made since?
Well, quite a few. It wasn't really a collision. They had multiple engine failures. The two stages failed to separate, and it went into a catastrophic tumble about 4 minutes after launch back on April the 20th. The Federal Aviation Administration required 63 corrective actions. Elon Musk, the company founder, says they've implemented over 1,000 upgrades and improvements since then, and they believe the rocket's finally ready to get the Starship into space. But again, it's a test flight, and it's not over until it's over, I guess is what I'm saying. So we know the first stage got off the ground last time, but we never saw the second stage perform. We'll see what happens when they launch it this time.
So that takes me to the final question. How long will it take to know if this launch is successful? And if it is successful, what's next?
Well, it's going to take the thing about 9 minutes to get to space. So the first stage fires for a couple of minutes to get out of the lower atmosphere. Then the Starship separates and goes on to space. It's going to loop around the planet. It's not going to go into orbit. It's going to re-enter the atmosphere and fall back to the Pacific Ocean north of Hawaii. And if it all gets that far, if both stages can do all of that, they'll consider this a major success. Down the road, of course, they're going to want to be able to fly these stages back to landing so they can be refurbished and reused, and to continue pressing ahead toward designing this stage to be able to carry astronauts back to the moon. So quite a lot on both SpaceX's plate as well as NASA's.
Bill Harwood, thanks for your expertise and analysis. Some retailers are now reconsidering those self-checkout stands. A retail crime platform found 39% of all thefts within grocery stores actually occur at the self-checkout. The data came from 10,000 stores in the U.S. Self-checkout accounted for 55% of the transactions last year, according to a recent study. That's up 17% from 2020. And if you think New York or California are the best states to work in, you are wrong. Experts say people are getting the most and the least out of their careers in those cities. We'll tell you more. You're streaming CBS News.
Our story's just begun.
Why did you want to share your story?
Water up this high?
Where are these coming from?
That's the million-dollar question.
I'm a very curious person. I wake up every morning asking, what's happening in the world? Why is this happening? And how do we answer that question on the CBS Evening News?
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Nations are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We aim every night to be factual and fair. That's our goal.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Controversial Congressman George Santos.
Why won't you answer our questions?
How did he manage to get elected?
Thank you very much, and God bless you, and God bless the USA.
George Santos' campaign was a campaign of deceit, lies, fabrication.
And who is he, really?
I knew him as Anthony Dvoldar from Queens.
Really, who he is, he's a fraud.
I compare him to the Tinder swindler.
From people who know him, the truth, the facts, the lies.
He would say that he was worth $100 million.
It's an incredibly cynical episode in American politics, beyond satire.
Had you ever seen anything like this?
No, and I hope I never see it again.
Campaign of Deceit, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Since childhood, she never stopped reaching for the skies. Now she's spent more time in space than any other American.
I like being a part of something bigger than me.
Peggy Whitson's extraordinary career as a history-making astronaut when we go person to person.
Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell.
I think I asked direct questions. I don't know that they're tough questions per se. Why aren't you holding yourself to that standard? It doesn't look like Congress is doing anything. What has to happen? That's the role of Face the Nation, to focus on the issues at hand. And that means a civil conversation with perspective.
We are about to see American weapons in the hands of Mexican cartels.
A gun pipeline to Mexico.
We are arming the cartels.
100%, no doubt about it.
Happening right under our noses.
Who's doing something about this? Nobody.
A CBS Reports exclusive.
Most Americans have no idea that we are effectively arming the enemy next door.
This is the story the American people need to know.
Arming cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
New research from a sales and recruitment firm lists the best and worst states to work in. Oregon, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Montana, and Delaware top the list, while Oklahoma, Louisiana, Alabama, Arkansas, and Mississippi were ranked at the bottom. Researchers considered factors like job growth, union representation, weekly hours, remote work, and wages. Stargazers, keep your eyes to the skies this weekend. You may see the annual Leonid meteor shower. Showers have been active since early November, but they are expected to be at their most brilliant shortly after midnight Saturday. But if you can't get up that early, there will be more meteors falling over the next few days. Scientists say the best way to see the showers is to avoid light pollution, so avoid the big cities for the clearest view of the skies. That does it for now. Thank you for spending the hour with us. We're always glad to see you here at The Weekender. Up next is 48 Hours. You're streaming CBS News.
The grief of losing a child is immense. You can't breathe.
After decades of the war on drugs, things have only gotten worse.
Every shipment of fentanyl is a ticking time bomb.
50 times more powerful than heroin.